Okay. Hey, you want to head in this room now? Okay. Who was prayed? Start us off. Who's prayed?
Actually, I have.
For you guys.
prayed.
You guys have?
I've prayed.
Okay. Justin's prayed? Okay. Faith. Okay. And pray for me to get my head in this room after being in bells for 45 minutes. Okay.
Dear Jesus, please let this confirmation class be educational to all of us and let our faiths grow stronger in you. And as Pastor Mark asked, please let his mind be in this class. And speak for him in the name of God.
Thank you. I say that because we're working on a couple of pieces that those of you musically is going bang, 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 bang. And so playing like crazy to keep up and coming here and just slow my brain down. So who plays a musical instrument? I don't know if Faith does. So you guys know what I'm talking about, right? When you're playing like this and yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And why do choir directors write? Why do choir directors always, they'll have the piece that goes like this real fast, and then they'll have the real slow piece that follows it. Have you ever noticed that? Mm-hmm. They don't do the slow piece, then the fast piece. They always do the slow piece second. Hold on. My musical experience. All right. Where am I at here? Okay. Let's back up. Get on slide 15 with me for a second. Let's just do a fast review of this. Who can give me a 2.5 minute review of this? Nobody can do a 2.5 minute review of this. Okay. Let's read page 33.
A lot of words.
Words. This falls when? Okay. So we're not there yet, right? I'll get you there. Okay. You'll wait, right? You're not? Okay. What's that?
If I told you I was late,
You're not awake. Okay. Does everybody have one of those days too? Good day or bad day? Does it stay up or down? Some days somebody's like this.
It's a little lower than mine.
Okay, it's kind of like this. Can I get it in here?
Classes
Okay.
are getting
All right, good. All right, okay. All right. Cardinals are losing, by the way.
Yeah. I'm still fine.
You know.
Oh, it's a bad day.
That's all right. We'll just have to win in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Sharp one, St. Louis.
Okay. When was that first game? That 13 inning? Was that Thursday night?
Friday night.
Friday night. Who stayed up to watch the whole 13 inning game? Did you
I
really?
didn't know.
All right. Hardcore.
I'm not going to sleep.
What's that?
I'm not going to sleep. I've made it this far.
All right. Hardcore. Good for you. Okay. All right. 15. This is a slide that talks about the time of the judges. And what I want you to remember about the time of the judges, you know, we've been tracking through the history here. What I want you to remember about the time of the judges was the bottom of page 33, right? You should have circled that. Did I tell you to do that?
Most underline.
Okay, underline it or circle it or whatever you want to do to it. The bottom of page 33. It says, in those days there was no king in Israel. All the people did what was right in their own eyes. Okay? Make sure you got that circled or marked in here. Okay? There was no king in Israel. That's a quote, what people were thinking. What's the problem with that statement? There was no king in Israel.
Because they need a ruler, otherwise you could think that stealing a piece of gold is the right thing.
Okay? Alright, you're on the right track. I'm going to back you up just in a second here. Who was supposed to be king?
God, Jesus.
God, you're just going to throw names out? God, Jesus, Holy Spirit? You just,
David,
Yeah.
the exit sign.
hey, the exit sign. Okay. Back it up. Who was supposed to be king?
Yeah.
Who? Yeah. What? You're a little ahead of me. Okay? Back up. You're in the history, just back up. Who was supposed to be king?
Daniel,
No. You're way ahead. No.
Joseph.
Look back at slide. Look back at 10. Right? That's back. We're taking you back right to the Exodus, right? Back to slide number 10. Who's supposed to be king? Oh, come on, you guys are guessing.
Abraham.
Just figure you guessed once, Jesus and didn't like me. Guess it again? Come on.
I don't know.
No, who's supposed to be king? Get the Exodus. Leading people out of Egypt.
Moses.
Who is supposed to be king?
Moses.
God.
No. What?
John.
Yes. I didn't take it from you because you just start throwing names at me.
Oh. I thought
God, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, David, Daniel. I was going to mention names until somebody says yes on one.
Yes.
All right? Yahweh. I am. God who brought him out of Egypt, right? He's supposed to be king. All right? Go back to 15 now. Okay? Back to page 33. Okay? So it reveals the problem. See, he's God's Yahweh who brought him out of Egypt, supposed to be king, but it says there was no king in Israel. Everybody did what they decided to do, right? They did what was right in their own eyes. What are they supposed to be doing? What are they supposed to be living?
Christian.
Christian life? You're close.
The covenant.
Yes! She gets to leave early tonight. Seriously. She gets to leave early. She got it. Covenant. They're supposed to live the covenant. Remember we talked about that. It starts off what? I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Therefore, what's next?
You shall have no other God.
Thank you. All right? Put it in the New Testament passage, right? For it is by grace you have been saved through faith. This is not of yourselves, it is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. Therefore, you are... Look it up. Remember the passage? Ephesians 8, 9, and 10. I want to make you guys memorize this one. Memorize that for next week. Ephesians 8, 9, and 10. You should have the 8 and 9 already memorized. So, okay. Look up Ephesians 8, 9, and 10. Okay. When somebody has it, throw your hand up.
Are you mean by chapter 8, 9, and 10, or verse?
Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8, 9, and 10. Okay, sorry. All right, thank you for your answer. You're excused the rest of the evening. Okay. All right. Somebody else give me a great answer, you can excuse the rest of the night too. All right. Let everybody catch up to you. Okay. Ephesians chapter 2. verses 8, 9, and 10. All right. Want to read? All right. Listen to what we're supposed to do. What the response is. Go ahead.
For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them.
So what we're supposed to do is, what's it say? For we are,
Workmanship of God.
God's workmanship. Right? Right? All right? Created in Christ Jesus to do good works. We're sitting here, New Testament. In the Old Testament, it was the covenant, love God, love others. All right? New Testament, it says here, Paul uses the same thing, is we're God's workmanship, creating Christ Jesus to do good works. Okay. All right, 16. I can, if I don't move on, I'll never get off that passage. Answer's not Jesus.
Oh, so close.
Okay. All right, I want to go through this one briefly because I want to talk with you, let you talk about the other one, a couple other ones here. All right. I'm going to show you a slide here, just a few slides in a minute, but I'm going to go through this one before I back out of it here a second. There's a time period in the Bible, it is kind of at the end of the time of the Judges, mentioned over here, Maggie, you mentioned Saul, okay, in here. This is that time period right in front of Saul is going in here, okay. What happened is that the Israelites, we talked about, said the last passage, they were doing their own thing, they weren't following God. And we talked there was consequences for not following God. Okay? One of those consequences they had for not following God, I'm trying to find my pointer, let's use this. Okay? The Ark of the Covenant, I have a picture of that, I'll show you in a few minutes. Ark of the Covenant was at a place called, where is it? Shiloh. What they would do is this Ark of the Covenant represented God's presence among his people. All right, you with me? Who's seen Indiana Jones? Raiders of the Lost Ark. Right? Okay. So you're kind of, it's a bad story. It's a good story. It's a good movie. It's not a biblical story, but it's a good movie. Okay? But you kind of got the gist here. All right? The Ark of the Covenant was God's presence with his people on earth. You with me? For the Israelites. Okay? So when they went to war here, what they would do is they would have people carry the Ark of the Covenant in front of them, in front of the battle lines. Okay, we've seen the old movies when they have the great big long lines of people and they go charging across the plains and everybody kills each other. Okay, they'd have the Ark of the Covenant going in front of them because that was the power of God. In the movie, by the way, Indiana Jones, the Raiders Lost Ark, that's why Hitler wanted it. Okay, he wanted the Ark because if he had the Ark going in front of his armies, they thought they'd win. That's this movie. But they do that here. Okay. Well, what happened here? All right. In this story, is it came in, and the Ark got captured. The Israelite army lost, okay, they lost because they hadn't been following God, and God says, you're not going to follow me, you're not going to get the blessing, so they lost, and the Ark got captured, and captured, when they came in, it wandered around here, down through here, through these Philistines, and some cool stuff happened in here, cutting a long story short, okay? And at the end, the Philistines said, we've had enough of this. Because people were dying. Philistine people were dying, and buildings were falling down. All kinds of bad stuff was happening to the Philistines. So the Philistines decided they're going to send it back. And so they just put it on a cart and send it back out across the field, and ox walk back and take the thing back. They didn't want any part of it. Okay? In here. But the thing comes down here, because they're doing all this, all right? They're doing all this and they're having all these wars. The question became, all right, we want a king. The Israelite people came to a guy by the name of Samuel who was leading the people and said, we want a king. All right, now what's the problem with that? You just talked about it. What's the problem with coming to God and saying, we want a king? Right, who was supposed to be king? Yeah, God was supposed to be king, right? In here, it's coming in and saying to God, "We want a new God." Right? You with me? Okay. A little.
Well, I mean,
a little rude. Keep going. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, if somebody would
Yeah.
come up to someone and be like, I don't like you, I want a new friend. I mean, it's kind of like that. It's hard to explain what it is.
Yeah, I know. I think I know where you're going here, right? Hey.
It's a little
Right?
worse than
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little hot. Yeah, right. Well, I think we all know what you're saying and where you're trying to relate it to here, right? Yeah, it's not like somebody coming up to you saying you want a new friend, right?
It's just hard to explain what I'm thinking in my head.
It's okay. So seriously, it's okay. You want to try again? Keep going. Okay. Because you're on the right track. Okay. And this is complicated. It's okay. All right. You guys are doing great, struggling with some of this stuff. Okay. I have adults struggle with this stuff too. Okay. Going through. All right. So they sit here and they said they wanted a king. And God tells Samuel, picking up on exactly what Cassidy said here, is God tells Samuel, Samuel, don't get mad at him. We're not talking about you, they're talking about me. Which is okay. Because I'm going to give him a king. Okay? I'm going to give him a king. Okay? And we're going to give him a king by the name of Saul. Alright? And Saul comes out to be a king, and you know the story. Saul starts off really good, and then Saul goes downhill. Okay? And starts chasing after David, and tries to kill David, and there's all kinds of cool stories in there. If you're in adventure stories, it'd make a great movie, so they could film it right. And chasing after David, they chase after David, and Saul ends up being killed, right? In here, in another battle, right? Remember at this time, all right, if you go to war with somebody, Israel went to war with somebody, say if you and I were going to war, okay? If you won, it means that your gods are stronger than my gods. Remember we talked about the Baals last week? Okay? Well, he's worshiping his gods and I'm worshiping my God. I'm worshiping, Yahweh here and I'm worshiping the Baals here and he's worshiping Yahweh. I'll put it that way, okay, for you. All right? You with me? Right? Countries that have their own gods. And if his country be my country, all the people would think that his God's stronger than my God. Okay? So, so he's, I'm worshiping Yahweh and he's another country and he beats me in battle. All the people are sitting here and say, wait a second, my God was supposed to be all powerful and strong and he can't win a war. What is this? The people doubt. Okay? So you sit here, and Saul comes in here, and Saul gets killed in 17. All right, this is what I want to get you to. Talk about Saul tonight. Okay. Talk about David tonight. Okay. All right. So you got your homework? All right. All right. You got all the homeworks? All right. Okay. All right. So, I don't want to do this. Let me tell you the story, walk you through the slide, okay? I'm going to walk you through the slide so you know the story. So listen to the story as I walk you through this story, okay? Because we're going to have a discussion as we get here. We get to the bottom of this, all right? Let me get my... There was a guy by the name of David. Everybody heard of David? Right? There's a guy by the name of David here, okay? And this picture up here in the corner here, represents David, okay? And God deciding to make him king, all right? And when God made him king, this is what you see in red here, and you see in this mauve colored right here. Israel was divided. Okay? Part of the people were grouped up here and part of them down here. They really weren't united. Remember we talked about community, how they were supposed to be community. They weren't. They were split. Okay? So one of the first things that David does is David unites them. Okay? Makes them one people. Okay? And what he does here is he makes Jerusalem, hopefully you've heard of that in the stories in the New Testament stuff, he makes Jerusalem the capital. Okay. And as he makes Jerusalem the capital, all right, then what he does is David goes to war. First thing he does is unite the country, but all these people are fighting against David. So what David does is David goes to war. And he does battle with all these countries, the Syrians, the Ammonites, the Moabites, Edomites, the Philistines, okay? He goes to war against all these people, and he basically defeats all these people, all right? And there's stories in here about the wars and going in, and how they defeated all these people, okay? In here, and if you want to, you know, in one of the very first stories is before he becomes king is David and Goliath, and there's stories in here. We could spend a couple of weeks on just going through the stories. Okay? So David, after a time, goes to war, and David brings, for the first time, okay, David brings peace to his people. Okay, I want you to stop and think here a second. All right. Back through the timeline here, what happens is they come out of Egypt, they wander in the wilderness, right, for 40 years, right? And you know this, they came across the Jordan River. Basically, they had about 300 to 400 years there of non-stop wars with people, okay? Now, it's hard for us to imagine in here. Can you imagine 300 years of wars, okay? On and on and on and on and on and on, okay? You didn't fight in the wintertime because the weather's so bad, but you go out in the summertime, spring roll around, and most of you guys are already old enough to go to war, so most of you guys would be in battle combat already, okay, doing something in the armies, okay? In here, most of you all would either be married or engaged, ladies, sorry, okay? In here, and you'd sit in here and you'd go to war, and this is 300 years. 300 years you got fight. 300 years you got 300 years of funerals. Okay, of people who are not coming back. So David finally brings peace. He's conquered all these people. He brings peace, and his country is basically what you see now, the outline in the yellow. All right. Now, in the meantime, what David has done here, in the meaning of this here, all right, is the Ark of the Covenant, this presence of God, all right. What David does is David says, I'm going to unite the people. This Ark of the Covenant right here, what I'm going to do is, he says, I'm going to bring the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. Because it's been up here someplace, okay? Outside Jerusalem, okay? He says, I'm going to bring it to Jerusalem because we're going to have people worship where the Ark of the Covenant is. We're going to have them come to Jerusalem and worship. That's because we're going to unite the people, right? We're a community. Remember back at the Mount Sinai? All the people were together, right? And they all worshiped right there at Mount Sinai. So we're going to bring the Ark back together so everybody's worshiping together again. So he brings the Ark back to Jerusalem, and that's what this little piece down here as he brings it back to Jerusalem, and Jerusalem becomes the capital, right? And David is king. With me? David's king. But not only is David king, but who is king now? God, right. David gets that. So God is king, all right? David is underneath him. David's king. Okay. All right. In here. And everything's cool. Right? You with me so far? Everything's good. Then David says, we got peace here. I'm living in a great big fancy house that I built. I'm going to build a house for God. Okay? You with me? I want to build a house for God. I want to build a temple. I'm going to show you pictures in a minute. I want to build a temple. And he says to God, God, I want to build a temple. And God, what God tells him, yes? What's that?
No.
You don't want to guess, or you know the right?
Only one of your descendants will build it.
Yeah, God, right? He comes to God and says, God, I want to build you a great big beautiful house. And God says, no! Yeah. He's like, great! Yeah, exactly. Great, God, thanks. But this is what I'm going to do. God tells him, you're not going to build a house. But that's what this, one of your sons, right? Make sure you underline this or write this down in your book. One of your sons will always be king over Israel. Okay? Got that? God tells David, one of your sons will always be king over Israel. It's one of those covenants that God makes with David. One of those promises that he makes. Is one of your sons will always be king over Israel. With me? You want to hang on to that because that's going to get nastier. Probably, if not this week, next week. Okay. So, goes in here. Now, you got this here, okay, but down here, all right, there's this little story here of David and Bathsheba, okay? And we're going, they're going to talk about this again, all right? Okay? Everybody know the story of David and Bathsheba? That's a yes, that's a no, that's a, you don't know it, but you're scared for me to tell you the story, right?
I'm not sure about that.
After last week, you're scared for me to tell you this story. All right, well, we'll make this polite, okay? It is springtime, all right, in Jerusalem. It says it's a time when kings go to war, because in springtime, kings that take their armies out and they do battle. It's in the middle of all these battles that David's having, okay? But for some reason, David's not out with his armies, David in Jerusalem, and it's a hot day. Okay? Well, Jerusalem's on the top of a hill, all right? David's castle's on the top part of that hill. Okay, there's two hills out there, actually, all right? One's where the tabernacle is, where the ark's located. The other one, the next highest one, is where David's castle is. Okay, slightly lower. Okay, so it's a really hot spring day in here, and so what's David do? David goes up on the roof because that's where the breeze is. Okay, that's gonna be the cool spot. David goes up on the roof, and being the highest place over here, he can see over the whole city, and he looks down over here, and there's this young lady over here taking a bath. All right? And he sits there and he starts lusting after her. And so he sends for her and comes over to the castle and makes adultery. Okay? Amen. All right? Sixth commandment, everybody's with me. Okay? She turns up pregnant. Okay. So she's married to one of David's officers of all people. Okay. And to make a long story short, okay, David arranges to have, the girl's name is Bathsheba. Okay. Arranges to have Bathsheba's husband, a guy named Uriah, which you may remember. Uriah, he arranged to have Uriah killed in battle. Because he's a soldier, right? He's in battle. He's, you know, everybody's off the hook. He takes, you know, he comforts the loss of the wife of one of his trusted soldiers and brings him and makes Bathsheba his wife. Okay? And everything's cool, right? Because, right? There's only two people that know, right? Are David and Bathsheba, and they're not going to be talking. So figure everybody's cool. Okay. Only one problem. Who knew? What's that? Yeah, God knew. Okay. So God comes to Nathan and says, talks to Nathan and the prophet comes to David and says, guess what? Yeah. What'd you say? No, seriously, what'd you say?
You're an idiot.
Thank you. You get to go home, get to leave early too. All right? Exactly. You're an idiot. Okay? You can screw it up. Okay. So you have this story of David and Bathsheba. Okay? In here. And David had multiple sons. He had lots of wives and lots of sons. Okay. In here. And David had sons. Okay. Yes. He had 3 sons. Okay? He had 3 sons that killed each other. Yeah, sons killing each other. Okay? They were technically half-brothers. Okay, different wives.
What are those feelings?
Thank you, you hang on to that. Seriously, hang on to that. Okay? You had 3 sons kill each other. Okay? On top of that, okay, going in here, what David did, hang on, make this story, I'll come to you, all right? On top of that, okay, David was a king. But also he had this tendency in here, is if there was somebody that was a real problem, and we're going to pick on, yeah, okay? I'm King David. He's one of my real problems over here. It's just one of those incessant problems in here. What do you think David's going to do?
Kill.
Yeah. It's easier. Okay? I don't have to deal with him. We'll just kill him. Okay? And might disguise it as something, but we'll just have him killed. Okay? In here. Alright? So, you with me on this story here, right? So this is my question for you. Was David a good king or a bad king? Both.
Both.
He made God king, but it was also bad because he killed him.
Okay, hang on. Everybody's getting a chance to answer.
Serial killer.
What's that?
Serial killer. Basically.
Pretty much.
So Justin's over here voting bad. Alright? Alright?
I vote both.
Okay. You vote both, I'm gonna ask her why.
Because he did good things and bad things. Like,
Anybody else? Who says good? Everybody's got to vote. Everybody's got to vote. Make everybody vote. Okay?
He made God king.
Okay? You make. Yeah.
I agree with her that he's both, but on the bad side, everybody's a sinner, and he was a sinner too. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
I don't think he's good. I'm on both because he wasn't the brightest, but he did make heaven.
Wasn't the brightest?
He wasn't the nicest.
Wasn't the nicest. That's good. As Justin said, he had his idiot tendencies, right? All right. All right. I have a bad. Anybody voting good? Go ahead.
I wrote bad because yeah, he did make God like king and everything, but then he just like threw him aside because he started killing people. He's like just like die.
Okay. All right. Yes.
So can I ask you that question real quick before?
Yes.
Okay, the three sons, so they killed each other. How does that possible?
Because he had more sons.
4.
He had lots more sons.
More.
But you,
More. M-O-R-E.
he had three
I
sons.
get
More, yeah.
Point.
Three sons killed each other.
Yeah.
Three sons were killed.
3 sons were killed. Thank you.
Okay.
3 sons.
What you said,
Yeah.
there were 3 sons.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We have a bad. We have a bad. We've got both. We've got. Where were you? Both. All right. Both.
Whoa, what was that?
What?
It was her Monday.
You voted both. All right. Anybody? Both? Because it sounds good, and you're scared if I say you're scared if you say good. You're scared if you say good.
Then we're all gonna put.
I'm gonna make you explain why, and you can't really say good. You can't say why.
I know it's both.
You know it's both. You sure?
I remember that question. He doesn't.
So if I prove you wrong, will you bring chocolate for everybody next week?
Sure.
No nuts.
Matthew, you can
But I'm a sinner. You can't
Swiss.
do it.
Swiss.
If you're gonna sell your brother's candy bars, sure.
Okay.
They're $1.
All right.
Okay. He didn't say
All right.
free.
I didn't say big ones. You could bring the little ones.
He didn't say free.
Right?
He didn't indicate that.
Right? No. You gotta bring it for us. Pay off. All right. All right.
Well, first of all,
Anybody?
I think the question's wrong. Because the question is, was he a good king? Not was he a good man?
Was he a good king?
Because he's not a good person. He was a good king, but he's not a good
I'm gonna like proving her wrong too. All right. Everybody, turn your Bibles. Open your Bibles to Acts chapter 13, verse 22.
If I'm paying for chocolate, I take it.
What was it?
Acts chapter 13, verse 22. Because he had more than 3 sons. Acts chapter 13, verse 22. All right. All right. Acts chapter 13, verse 22. Everybody have it. This is one of those ones, if you have it, we'll probably want to underline it in your Bibles. Okay? All right. Let me set up this passage. Okay? Apostle Paul is in a place called Pisidian Antioch. Okay? You're going to wonder where that. Oh, there's a map. Okay? It's in Europe, Macedonia. Okay? And he's talking to the people in the synagogue. He is ultimately going to talk about Jesus. And he's ultimately going to talk here, all right, about Jesus, but he's telling these Jews the story And he gets to this point in the story. I want to have stand up.
Where's my hat?
I'll pick it on you. All right. Remember, this is David's telling the story. I want you to start reading and read Acts chapter 13, verse 22. Everybody follow on.
And when he had removed him, he raised up David to be their king, of whom he testified and said, I have found in David the son of Jesse, a man after my heart, who will do all my will.
Who testified?
Jesse.
No. Who testified? God. You see, it sounds easy. Okay. God testifies, and God says that David is what? What's the word? What words does he use?
Man
After whose own heart? Is David a good king or is David a bad king?
He's a
He's a good man.
All right.
he's still an idiot.
Yes.
When he did it wrong.
Oh, getting in.
I didn't hear.
Right? Say it.
He repented when he.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm gonna give you kind of a hint here. All right. Let me give you a hint here because I'm going to go on, and we'll get to a little more of it. I'll kind of fill in the blanks at the end. Okay. I like Milky Ways. Right. In there. All right. Now, because I'm going to go on here, because it's important for you to hear the rest of the story. Okay, tonight. This piece. But suffice it to say, for your information tonight in here is going through. Okay. You have Saul was first, right? We know Saul was bad. David comes in. David unites the country. Okay. He's the first. They call it. A lot of people call it the first real king over Israel. All right. He is the king that all the rest of the kings are judged by. Okay. All the rest of the kings from, and it's probably close to 500 years of kings. All the rest of these kings in some almost 500 years, he is the one that all of them are judged against. They'll say, pick up probably next week. They'll say, Josiah was a good king like his father David. Or so-and-so was a good king but not as good as his father David. Or Ahab was a terrible king. He didn't do anything that David did. Okay? Now, we're going to go on to that. Okay? Now, 18. Now, I'm going to go back here.
I can't get my head around
It's
that.
Robin.
You can't?
No.
Hang with it then.
Okay, but
Hang with it.
you're losing me. I'm like, I
Yes.
can't get my head around that at all.
Right. Like have David's the standard everybody else, all the rest of the kings are judged by.
Yes,
All the earthly kings. Not Jesus, but all the others.
right,
Okay. Hang with it.
okay.
Hang with me. Okay? All right? Hang with me. Hang on to that thought. All right? So, back to our story here, right? David and Bathsheba. You're going, oh no, not this again. All right? So, David and Bathsheba, remember he said that Bathsheba was pregnant, right? Okay? I don't like calling it punishment, but it's a consequence of actions in here. It's hard for me to grasp punishment. I'll tell you why if you want to ask me privately. All right? That child that Bathsheba was carrying dies 8 days after birth. 7 days after birth, actually. Okay? It's a son. He dies after birth. Okay? Okay. That son doesn't live. Okay? But Bathsheba, remember the story now, okay? With me? David and Bathsheba have another son. Okay. In that another son is the king who follows David. Okay. It's a guy by the name of, remember? Solomon. Okay. Good things happen from bad. God can make good things out of bad situations. Okay. And so Solomon goes in. Where's my pen? Okay. Solomon goes in here. And here in Jerusalem, and Solomon makes forts. Solomon's is a king. He makes forts, and he protects, and he expands the borders out here. And Solomon's a man of peace. Okay. Remember when I told you that when God said, when God told David, "You're not going to build a temple," but yet your son will? Okay, when God told David no, this is the son. This is the son who builds the temple. Okay? Now, all right. Let me do this. I'm going to see if I can't do this here. I do have pictures I want to show you. Okay. All right. Can you guys see that? Why don't, Maggie, can you kick on the rheostats that throw the little floods on, turn the fluorescents off so we can see. It'll help the, yeah, kick those on. Push. Yeah, those one too. Okay. It'll help you be able to see a little better. Okay.
You want me to turn these off too?
Yes.
It makes it look
Okay.
shinier.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. It makes it just easier to see here for you guys to see. Okay. All right. This is. Let me get my. That's not open. What did I do? Oh, there. Okay. All right. I do it this way. Sorry, I have to do it this way because the program I use for the other slides doesn't let me stick stuff in. They've done something to it, we can't crack it. So, this is, and if you've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, this is probably as good a representation of what the Ark of the Covenant would have looked like. Okay, all gold. In here, it would have had bars in here, how they would have carried it, because nobody could touch it. Okay, angels over here. All right. If you've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, they pull it out of the crate and this looks like a great big thing. Okay. Archaeologists probably think, and people who do these studies probably don't think it wasn't probably this big, that great big thing you see in the movies. It probably was like this. It probably may have been 2-3 feet total. Okay. Not huge. Like this. But we don't know the size. But that's probably a decent representation of just what it looked like. This is what would have gone before. It would have made it out of gold, so it would have been shiny like, just like this is. Okay? Going in. Now. You with me? Okay. And that was the first thing. Now this is the temple. This is a picture of Jerusalem from the south. All right? This is looking north. As you're looking at this picture, there's two of these actually on the wall in my office, if you've ever been in my office. In here, all right? As you're sitting here taking this picture, I'm taking this picture, if you would have turned around, looking the other direction, you could have seen Bethlehem. Okay. This is over here, just a little geography. This is the Mount of Olives over here. Okay. And Mount of Olives is where the Garden of
Gethsemane.
Gethsemane, right? Is over here. All right. Now this is all built up, because this is modern day Jerusalem. So this is all built up. So this is Hebrew University, and these are apartment buildings and stuff are in here. This right here is what's called the Temple Mount. Okay? This is where the temple would have been in David's day. This is where the temple would have been in Jesus' day. These walls that you see right here are from the time of Jesus. Okay? Now, some of the stones down here, Cassie asked for the original, some of the stones down here in the bottom were originals from the time of David. These stones right here are from the time of Jesus' day. Okay? Because it was built once and destroyed, we'll talk about it, and then rebuilt. Okay? Again. This is looking north. This is right in here. In David's day, this is pretty close to what David's city would have looked like. Pretty much right about there, okay? They might have gone over into this valley over here just a little bit. Okay? This is an Islamic mosque right there. That is not the temple. That is an Islamic mosque. The Muslims built a mosque in there about 750 AD, right? And it still stands. This is one of the places in Jerusalem. It's at one of the hotels, actually. They built a scale model of Jerusalem at the time of Jesus. This is the time of Jesus, to give you a reference in here. The temple that Solomon built would have been similar, not quite necessarily as big, but I want to let you see this to give you some reference in here.
So this is this real is a replica?
This is a replica. This is a scale model in here. You can see that these are people right here walking by. These walls right here, like right here. Okay, you can't tell from the distance. That wall, like right there and right over here, is probably somewhere between 75 and 100 feet high. Okay. That is, those are incredibly high walls. Okay.
Great religion.
What's that? All right. We can talk. Now, this is the time of Jesus. At the time of Jesus, this is the temple right here. What's called the Temple Mount, the temple area. This is the temple proper itself. Okay. This is a Roman fort. The Romans, when they came into Jerusalem, they built a fort right beside so they could watch and make sure everything and keep the peace. This is kind of a high spot in the city as well. This would be houses in here. All right, in here. It's hard to see in this picture. Most likely, right here, Jesus' Calvary was in that area right there. Actually, no, it's not, I'm sorry. Calvary was in this area right there. Okay. So when Jesus, on Good Friday, when they walked Jesus, they would have walked him from here down through the city, out this gate. And Calvary would have been right there. That would have been outside the walls. Now it's inside the walls of the middle of town. Okay? In here. Here's another view, the same thing. Alright. This is where most likely Calvary would have been. They would have walked him out down through here. And then come out this gate and right in this area right here. Okay. Today on that site is called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Where people believe it's a church that was constructed over the top of the site of Calvary and the tomb. And if you want to go to the place, you can get in the building for free. If you want to wait for 6 hours, you could probably have 15 seconds sticking your head in the tomb too. They didn't do that. They didn't want to spend 6 hours in there. Yes?
When you talk about the Calvary, are you talking about the crucifixion of Jesus at Golgotha?
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. I'm using Calvary. Okay. probably was right here. Stuff I read in here, probably because it was close to a graveyard. I mean, a place of the skull. This is just looking the side. These are Roman columns. This is looking toward what would have been the south, right here. What people would have done is people would have come up from underneath. They'd come up underneath in here, and they would have come out these entrances right here and walked across the courtyard to the temple. This is the temple proper itself. All right. In Jesus' day, this would have been, even in Solomon's day, this would have been all gold. Okay. Now, give you a frame of reference. These walls right here are probably 40, 50 feet high. These are probably 4-story buildings. This temple right here is probably 100, 120, 150 feet tall. Would have been, in Solomon's day, it would have been made out of, covered with gold. Okay. This would have stood out in the sun. I mean, you could have seen this thing for miles on top of the hill. What people would do is people would come in here through the courtyard. They would come in through this entrance right here, this gate. And this out here was called the court of women, right in here. Which meant the women could go this far and this far only. And the inner court here is where all the sacrifices took place and all the priests would work and where the men would go. So say if we were all our family and we were going to the temple to offer our sacrifices, right? In here, just given the makeup of the room today, if we would say we were all family, or considered a family unit going in here, okay? We would all go in and we all would come in here and come across the courtyard, and you all could have come into this area right in here. And what we would have done since I'm the only male, basically 13, for us is confirmed. Male who's 13, I would have taken all your sacrifices inside the court. So it works. Now, if you're say 13, 14, that's kind of the break in here. Okay, 13, 14 years old, Jewish words are called bar mitzvah, similar to our confirmation in here. If you've been through that, you would have gone through. Yes, okay. I want to cover this, okay, because I'm going to get this next slide. This is the inside of the temple. All right? This is a mock-up of what the inside of the temple would have looked like. All right? This is the area, this would have been called, what's called the holy place right here. Every day, twice a day, the priest would come in, and there's a candle stand here, and they would keep that lit at all times. And then this was a table where they would have bread on it, unleavened bread, Passover, all the time. Okay. The priest would come in here twice a day and offer prayers. They'd make sure the candles are lit, and they'd offer prayers, and there was a procedure to go through. Okay. There was a guy by the name that did this every day and met God in here. Okay. Zechariah. The story in Luke, right? Zechariah the prophet comes in, meets God in here. God says, you're going to have a son. Zechariah says, no, I'm not. God says, okay, you're going to have a son, but you're going to talk for the next 9 months. Okay? And his son's born, and his son's name is? John the Baptist. All right. Make sure you bring chocolate.
I cancel it.
And in here, all right, this is where the Ark of the Covenant would have been. All right, this is where the Ark of the Covenant would have been. Okay, now, I tell you all of that. Let me get back out of this. All right. Okay. So this is where we're at. Okay. So this is what Solomon builds. That's time to give you a picture and geography and stuff, and I'm going to talk a little quick. All right. What Solomon builds, okay? All right. But Solomon had a couple problems here, okay? Solomon had lots of wives, okay? Where's it say in here? Remember? You've been through this, didn't they tell us? 700 wives? Yeah, ridiculous number. Okay, ridiculous number of wives. Okay. Well, every time they had a problem with a king or a problem with somebody, Solomon would marry a daughter. In those days, that was the easiest way to make peace with people. Okay. If you and I are in conflict here, you want to make a treaty, all right? Easiest way for us to make a treaty here was to make the treaty. I tell you what, I'll give you one of your sons, one of my daughters, and you give me one of your daughters. Because now we are what? Family. Instant peace. Okay, I'm supposing. Right? Well, we heard of David, right? Sometimes they're not overworked. Okay? But a lot of these wives were from foreign countries. Foreign countries worship what? The Baals, okay? So, wait for it, at the end of his life, Solomon, who had built this temple, right? What's that? Well, maybe not believed in Baals, but started building temples and places for his wives to worship Baals. And it gets better. No, it gets better. Okay, all right. Now I'm cutting a little bit off because I want to show you this one as well. Okay, this is 19. I'm going to end on 19. You're going to love this one. Okay. What I want you to do now in your brain, we're going to talk about, we'll pick up a little bit next week, but I want you to, in your brain here, is I want you to fast forward about 350 years. Okay? Solomon has died, and I'll explain a little more later. What I want you to do is fast forward your brain 350 years. Got it? About 640 AD. We've gone from 300 to about 650 in 15 seconds. Okay? That's Back to the Future. All right. Back to the Future. Okay, thank you. All right. There is a guy by the name of Josiah is king. Okay? All right? And in 350 years, the people have forgotten a lot. Remember one of the things they were supposed to do with the covenant? They were supposed to, right? You're supposed to teach each other. In 350 years, they've forgotten a lot of things. Okay? In here. All right? And they have places scattered all around the country here that worship, wait for it, that worship Baals. Okay? And so Josiah is king here, and he's fairly young, and Josiah is God-fearing and God worships, okay? Believes in God. And so Josiah says, what we need to do is we need to clean the temple. Because nobody's actually gone in and cleaned it, just fixed it up in 350 years. So you can imagine what it's going to look like, okay? All right?
Sorry.
What's that?
I said that that's kind of nasty.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty nasty, isn't it? So it goes in here, and Josiah finds, wait for it, Josiah finds, by that the symbol is, he finds Ark of the Covenant, but he also finds a copy of the
Ten Commandments.
Covenant.
Oh.
Remember the covenant that was written down way back? He finds a copy of the covenant. And he starts reading the covenant. And guess what he finds out?
God's real.
God's real, but Baals are fake. And there's a lot of stuff we're not doing. So, Josiah decides that we're going to throw everything out of the temple that shouldn't be there.
What was it?
Can you figure out yet what they were doing in the temple? They say it. Say it. They were don't say false gods. What were they doing? What were they doing in the temple? Can you figure it out yet?
Breaking the Ten Commandments. Every single one of them.
They were worshiping the Baals in the temple.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why we talked about what we did last week, because you had to understand it this week. All right. And why God was so upset with his people. They were worshiping the Baals in the temple. Yeah. Okay. Worshiping the Baals in the temple. Now we're going to come back to that. Okay. In here. But to finish kind of the story, since I'm running it, I got a couple minutes. Okay. In here. Okay. So Josiah throws this out of the temple. Josiah cleans the thing up. Josiah says, we're going to go back and we're going to start remembering the covenant. Okay. And we're going to start following the covenant. Josiah does all this great stuff and he's cleaning these things up. The only one little problem, Josiah is killed in battle in 609 BC. Okay. 609 BC. Okay. And that's this picture right here, is they're worshiping the Baals in the temple. Okay. Now, I'm going to go to this next slide. I'm going to come back to it next week, but I'm going to do it here so I can answer a question here. Okay. All right. But you brought up earlier. You thought I forgot this. Okay. In here, how can they all judge? I'll get back to this next week. How can they come back and how can the scriptures judge all these earthly kings against David, right? You're trying to figure this out, right? What did David not do?
Follow the covenant.
No. David did, I'll ask it positive. What did David do? Who did David worship?
God.
God. Right? Be specific. Which God?
His God. The God.
No. The God. Thank you. I'll take that. Right? The God. Right? The God from the Exodus. The God who gave the covenant. The God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Right? He worshiped the God. Okay? Hang on to that. What did David not do?
Worship the true God.
Worship. Say it. No, don't say false gods. That could be anything.
Baals.
The Baals. That's how David is judged against everybody else. Everybody's against David because despite all the bad things, you guys hit it and let's go right past it. Despite all of the bad things that David did, he didn't worship the Baals. He worshipped Yahweh.
The God.
The God. Okay? He worshipped the God. Okay? We're going to go over this. I'm going to pick up with this next week. Okay? Because this is important for you to catch on. Okay? All right. Deep breath. Take a breath. Okay. All right. That's a good start. 11:25. Okay. All right.
Turn lights.
Yeah, go ahead and turn it off.
No, the lights.
Okay, good. Get the lights on. All right. This is, okay. Did I use a deep water illustration with you guys? The deep water? Did I tell you deep water illustration?
Yeah, you did. You were dropping off the kids into the.
Yeah, swimming pool, the deep water? Yes, okay. All
Everyone
right.
say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So, this is,
See you next week.
bear with me, ladies.
Bye bye.